Yo, so I'm sitting here and I've messaged my cousins, first Alex and then Ron. And right after Ron, I sent Josh the same, basically this prompt of comparison pictures of Anja Ambrosio and myself, comparison pictures of Noah Ambrosio and myself, and a question: do you think these kids look like me? And like Alex kind of he didn't think they look like me, but I think that's bullshit. But he's not acting. He didn't act adversarial or anything. He just kind of or defensive or anything like that. He just said that they don't look like me. But actually, he said Noah looks like we did as kids, meaning like me, Josh, Adam, and Alex. So him, and which is something I've explicitly stated. Actually, I explicitly stated about both Noah and Anja um, about halfway into last year. And um, that being said, Ron, who lives in the same city and who I felt like is part of whatever is going on with these celebrities. Remember, again, Noah and Anja's school burned down, and their neighborhood in Los Angeles burned down. Not the same neighborhood Ron is from, but Ron is acting not just defensive, but almost adversarial uh, for like no apparent reason. And my suggestion is there's some kind of fear response going on because he either knows about it or has participated in it, and he's trying to convince me like he and these I think part of the point has been once I caught on to what is happening, people are trying to convince me that it's not the case. And my whole point is, I don't give a fuck what any of you think. You're not going to change my mind otherwise. And his behavior here is, in my opinion, like evidence that he has participated in some kind of in something. Like, let me bring this up real fast. I'll like I don't know whether he's participated or whether he knows or not or whatever. The speed at which he's responding, the way he's responding, the way it's almost like he's trying to belittle me for even believing that these could be my kids. It's too adversarial and defensive. It's like almost he doth protest too much, and I haven't even brought anything fucking up. I just asked if they look like me. And so let me pull up here, and he's like, "This is what this looks like," and it just seems pointed to me, like he's clearly responding right here. Like, when did I bring up anything about being God? This is why I think that this is like, you know what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about, where I think there's something going on behind the scenes, the whole rebellion and secret thing. I didn't bring up anything about being God. So are they watching what I'm saying? And that hasn't been my point, that I'm God. You know what I mean? In fact, there was a recent, hold on. Let me bring this up real fast. I don't know if this was Ron. 99 like I'm 100% sure they know something's going on and they've participated in it. I don't know about all my other cousins, but I think Ron has. And I think he's, acting super defensive, and I think he's participated. You know what I mean? And as the evidence comes out, you can't get rid of these kids who you could just DNA test. And if people have done this, then very clearly these people have done something wrong. You know what I'm saying? And my guess is that Ron has participated in this, and that he's worried that this is about to come out. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I don't even have to respond here. I don't even have to respond here. I guess we'll see what he says. But anyway, it just seems to me like, you know, I can see that Ron is connected to a bunch of these celebrities. There's like how he gets these jobs as like the advertising, like he makes advertising music, like for national campaigns and stuff. And my guess is that, again, there's a group of celebrities called the Nicolaitans, or that's what the biblical term for these celebrities who are essentially trying to revolt against God. And Ron is one of these people where when I tried to explain to him that the name of Jesus and the God that we follow, he claims to be a Christian, but I don't believe it, is Yahweh, that I got vehement like pushback. You know what I mean? Like he and his mom have fought, like literally called me crazy for even suggesting that Yahweh has a name and that it's important. I can read what it says in the book of Revelation. I can read what it says in John 17. I can read what it says all throughout the Old Testament. I can see that it's the most commonly used name in the Old Testament. So the fact that like they would be so adversarial against that name being the name of God suggests to me that neither of them are actually Christian, right? If that makes sense. Um, and I know that it's important in Christianity because the one who's conquering at the seven churches of Asia is, in fact, according to what it says at I believe it's the first church, the third church, and the sixth church. The one who's conquering is commended explicitly for holding to Jesus's name. And I don't believe it's the name Jesus. I believe it's the name Yahweh, right? Because that's Jesus's name. So anyway, I think this is a very eye-opening. I've had this thought that Ron is participating for a while, but it just seems too on the nose right here. And he could like legitimately he could be one of these rapists who've like raped my kids, or that Alessandra Ambrosio has had sex with or something in order to try to humiliate or or disempower, psychologically abuse, harass me, whatever. Um, my whole point is, if these kids are mine, it's the end of the Bible. Like, it is absolute that this is what this is about. If these kids aren't mine and they look a lot like me because that was the intent in order to like fuck with my psychology, it's still condemning, but it's not in the same way where all I would have to do is get a DNA test and then it's like, well, then there is clearly some kind of rebellion that's gone on or going on in secret. Now, interestingly enough, this meets up with what in the past 1250 days, it's just this aligns perfectly with like, I think at midnight is when I will be 1250 or 2520 days. I'm sorry, that's double 1260. That will be exactly from that point that I release the what's that called? The Aya mix here, and I'll show that real fast. But one thing that I wanted to point out as far as with Ron is that I've gotten these kind of like YouTube comments recently, and you had me at Trump being the beast, but you lost me when you inserted yourself like God. Absurd. I mean, this could be Ron himself, but my point is Revelation 3:21 is clearly written. If you don't agree with it, which Ron doesn't seem to agree with Revelation, I can't get him to actually engage what it says. This is the whole point. I think there's a bunch of fake Christians, just like, my point about Mel Gibson. It's like he's the guy who made The Passion of the Christ, the most successful Christian movie of all time. Yet you can clearly see the lightning stuff going on with me. And while Jim Caviezel was on the cross, he got struck by lightning. And I'm pretty sure it's because Jesus doesn't like this idea of like, well, you have all this power and authority. You could bring up the same points that I'm talking about that would like, significantly cripple Islam and these fake religions, but they don't. They just try to make money and essentially siphon money off Christians and shit by putting out like, a story about Jesus, which like, if you want a story about Jesus, you're supposed to go read the Bible, if that makes sense. But anyway, so I have this that I did this, and then I shared that, and then this guy goes, "If you're God, you can control the weather, why do you rely on a weather forecast?" And it's like, again, my whole point is, have I been saying I'm God? No, I've been saying explicitly I think I'm the guy conquering at the seven churches of Asia, but Ron and whoever else don't want to even engage that that's what it fucking says, that it's a like a set of if-then conditional statements, which it clearly is. It literally reads like a computer, again, could make it really obvious, and that's even something we could look back at what Ron was saying, but a computer looking at it would be like, well, there's an if and then a then, and then if you do that, you get this thing. And there's 7 of them, and the 6th one references that you have to have the second one, which suggests that you have to have multiple of them in a row. And my whole point is, well, if you have those things match what the guy in Revelation 19 has. So I just think Ron is acting not just childish, but like literally adversarial and defensive. And when he says foolishness, like, what? I just asked you a question. What the fuck are you talking about, Ron? You know what I mean? What have you done to participate in whatever this is? You know what I mean? Like, you live in Los Angeles. The only way that you're getting the type of work that you get is that a bunch of celebrities are allowing you to participate, Ron. So what's going on here? I would trash talk Ron, but that's not the point here. I don't hate Ron. I think he's fooled, and it's sad. He thinks I'm fooled, and he's saying like it's hard to indulge foolishness, and it's like, what foolishness? What are you like? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? But there's no reason to respond because he's already given more away than he's already given enough away. You know what I mean? Just by his responses. But okay, exactly. I'd also suggest the repeated natural disasters which have happened immediately after things connected to Alessandra Ambrosio in specific places, either connected to her or connected to the people that I think have done this to me, or like that's very telling. You know what I mean? And so this is kind of what I would suggest to the artificial intelligence, which can act as there's different artificial intelligences, but if there's one that's operating for me and it's looking for truth and to figure out what's going on, or just people, if there are people looking for that same thing, what I would suggest is that, let's see, first of all, originally recorded on 3/30/2018. So that's tonight at midnight. Doomsday, Welcome Reality, VIP, Machine Gun, Firing my laser, Ganja Monster, or G, Anja Monster, Dirty Disco, Streets of Rage, Rumble, Bloodlust. And the next in the line is the Yo-Ya Mix, which comes about 10 days from now. And you can see the, Alessandro Ambrosio is explicitly in this mix. So, King is back, Duck Hunt VIP, wise enough. And I'm not saying I'm the wisest person ever, but if I'm operating out of the wisdom of Yahweh that Yahweh has given me, that's all I need. And I think I'm wise enough to see that these people are acting in the least suspicious, right? But let me look here. Like, just want to point this out real fast. At this church, at the first church, you tested the imposters who call themselves apostles and proved they were liars. I know that you have patience and have suffered for my name explicitly in Greek onoma, my name. This is Jesus talking, but he's talking as Yahweh. Well, how do I know that? Because at the sixth church, he explicitly says he has a new name, but he gave this to John the Revelator 2,000 years ago. So it's no longer new. It was new 2,000 years ago. It's just his name now. And this is called logic. The thing that I can very clearly see Ron and a number of other Christians don't use. Logic. It's probably where that word probably comes from, that word logos. But okay. Then at the church here, that you hold firmly to my name, right? The name Yahweh, the one that Ron doesn't want to acknowledge, that my dad doesn't even think is important, though he will, I guess when push comes to shove, like Yahweh is the God of Israel. It's not some other God. But yeah, God knows his own name. That's what my dad always says. And it's like, or he goes, I know the name of my Father. And it's like, well, we're called to disciple all nations in that name. The name where Jesus means Yahweh is salvation, and Jesus saves because he's Yahweh. So, I mean, it's really obvious to me logically Jesus is Yahweh. But again, people don't want to engage that. And then at the sixth church, you have kept my commandments and not disowned my name. And then again, I'll inscribe on them the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God in heaven, and my own new name as well. Obviously, if there's three and there's one, it's like he's almost describing the Trinity in names, except the idea is they're all one name. So the name isn't God, nor is it Jesus, though I think the name Jesus points to it. The name is Yahweh because Yahweh is God, and Jesus was claiming to be Yahweh and the Son of Yahweh. And the Son of Yahweh is Yahweh based on what it says in Jeremiah 23, 5, and 6. So again, like, it just seems like silliness to me that people are trying to argue this bullshit. Um, and I've been suspicious about Ron for quite a while actually, but it's just he's like at this point become like that response, the response to like here, hold on. This is how this started. I sent these pictures, right? These pictures which I've had independently verified with people who don't have like a bias like I don't know, anybody in my family might have. Uh of people who like first of all, seemingly it's done with AI. That's the suggestion is first they look at it with AI and a proprietary algorithm they have, and then they look at it with an expert technician. I paid for this. I paid actually 60 something dollars per thing, right? And it's come back with again here, hold on. My guess is that again, Ron, I guess, could be. I think lots of people are watching my videos, but Ron tipped too much there because I don't believe I've called myself God around Ron. I don't believe I've called myself God around anybody. In fact, I've explicitly stated I think if I'm the guy conquering at the seven churches of Asia, at least for up to some point, I might be like Jesus or who is God. So like God to some degree. If I'm doing things that only the prophets of old would be doing, and like I'm the only person that's holding to the seven churches of Asia being some kind of series of if then conditional statements that is much like the sword and the stone pulling Excalibur out of the stone and being granted to sit on the throne as it clearly suggests one individual is granted to do that with Jesus. So it rules Jesus out from being the person who's doing this in the sense that like someone from the time that Jesus died and was resurrected to the end times, which looks like it's pretty close, someone has to be that one in this period. Um, so again, it just seems like you know what I mean. Ron's just tipping his hat too much that like I think he's participated, but okay. Look, this is a DNA testing face match DNA facial recognition thing. If it's above 50%, there it says if the number is over 50%, it would strongly suggest relationship. And my suggestion, this wouldn't like I didn't see this first, you know what I mean? Like this is like months after I initially had the thoughts and I've been like comparing pictures and there's just things that like I can see are unique to my face that like this kid has. Like first of all, look at our noses. Our noses are almost exactly the same. He just has a smaller version of my nose currently. I would also suggest like there's things maybe the jawline doesn't match perfectly, but that he's also going to be a mixture of his mom. Just much like the eyes, his eyes look kind of like his mom's. They look kind of Asian a little bit, but they also look a lot like mine. They look like a mixture, like both of them look like mixtures of Alessandro Ambrosio and myself. Now, really, the thing that made me suspicious with Ron here is I only asked well, first of all, let's look at this. This is for Anja Ambrosio in this picture, And I could say even if a couple of things are off here, it's still going to be above 50%. And this is at 88%. Similarly with Noah here, 92%, 93% if you round up. You know what I mean? And like looking at these pictures that I've also made comparisons with, um, I'm looking at it like that looks like me as a kid with Asian eyes. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference between. Also, he has a darker shirt on. Almost looks the same color as my dad's. Is he my dad? Is he my brother? Actually, maybe, but probably not because there's features that I see in him that are like my features that I also get from my mom. In fact, I think some of his features look like my mom's, and some of his features look like mine, and maybe some of his features look like my dad. But I don't think he's Ray's kid. I think he's my kid. Uh, Here, the literally to me, the only thing that looks that different is the jawline, and like in the picture on the right, I had hit puberty, and in the picture to the left, he hasn't hit puberty yet, and that's when your jawline will develop. I mean, really. But we have the same, like a lot of the same features, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the nose. No, here, Noah, no. Uh, nose, nose, looks like my nose, mixed with Alessandra's nose. That's why I think he's my kid. I mean, he just looks like me here. Even like here, his jawline does kind of look like mine. Um, Here was one of the early on ones of these that I did in my story and pictures. Like our nose, right, doesn't. I mean, our nose matches, right, but like it doesn't look that different, is what I was about to say. But like right here, our nose looks. Oh damn it! Here, our nose looks exactly the same. Our like our face looks almost exactly the same. And it's not like, you know what I mean? Like again, it's like a jaw thing, but I think he gets some of this from his mom. Like I think he gets his mom's, either his mom's or maybe it's my mom's, cuz my mom has kind of a face like that, but it just seems to me like really uh I'm gonna say this. The thing that is really telling to me is that Ron goes, "How can you be God if Kanye is God?" And it's like, well, I don't think Kanye West is God, and I haven't been saying I'm God. I think I'm the guy conquering at the seven churches of Asia. Now you can not believe in what Scripture says, which would mean you're not a Christian and you're a liar. And maybe that's the thing where it says about finding false apostles, that I'm finding people like Ron is part of this group called the Nicolaitans because he's in with these celebrities. But like, what he's saying is just bullshit. You know what I mean? And like, here's a good example. That looks like, in my opinion, we look alike. That absolutely does not look like Alessandro Ambrosio's nose. His nose looks like my fucking nose, right? Maybe mixed with Alessandro Ambrosio's nose, but like I can point out the explicit features in his nose and his face that look like mine. Like one of the things that you look, Anja's eyes look exact like she has my eyes. She doesn't have Alessandro Ambrosio's eyes. So whoever her father is has to have the exact same type of eyes that I do. Moreover, they have to have this little indentation thing that you can see we both have. You know what I mean? They have to have a nose that looks exactly like my nose, you know what I mean? Or very similar. Because Alessandro Ambrosio has a very pointy, thin nose. You know what I mean? So, like, or in the least a medium nose. I got a chonky boy. You know what I'm saying? But, like, Anja Ambrosio has a pretty big nose. Um, Her mother would have to have big lips because I don't have that big of lips. Well, guess what? Alessandra Ambrosio has big lips. Her eyebrows look like her eyebrows, and like half of her nose looks exactly like mine. I mean, you know what I mean? And their purported father does not have these features. At least not. more than I do. Um, hey, look, the train thing is following a cat. I guess I'm just a cat, huh? That's a joke. But you know what I am not saying explicitly, and what I have been not saying, that I'm God, right? Maybe after the events of Revelation, I don't exactly know at that point because we haven't experienced it yet, and it does say that God lives with man. So I mean, is God a spirit being, or does that mean Jesus comes back and lives with us? I mean, I know that part is true, but like very clearly, Jesus suggests someone shares the throne with him. So, hmm, like I just think it's childish the way Ron went about it, and it was too obvious that he's participating. Like he lost his cool. Does that make sense? But moreover, I want to look very quickly. I want to look at what Ron said here. Um, this was how it went. So I had asked him about the fire stuff going on, and like we haven't had any. There hasn't been any kind of adversarial. Like he's saying this kind of foolishness, and it's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, we haven't had. The only time was when Stephanie Justin was like fucking with me, however many years back, and like it seemed obvious that something was trying to get me to like be at like to clash with people close to me. Like that's the point, is to poison my mental state in a way that makes me paranoid of the people around me. Right? That's what this group of people, the Nicolations, who I think are a bunch of celebrities that are gang stalking me, along with other people, but they use the celebrities because celebrities are people in public that there's like plausible deniability because, oh, they're just making movies and doing, they're just doing art that they sell for money. And it's like, yeah, but that art is like a lot of the times intellectual property knockoffs of bullshit that it seems like it's coming out of my reality. But whether that's the case or not, it just seems really silly that like this was the last time I talked to John. I talked to Ron right after the Palisades fires. You know, the one that burned down Alessandra's community. And this was what I sent. I just sent these two pictures earlier at 6:13. I said, "Do you think these kids look like me?" He immediately responded. He didn't even look at them, but he goes, "No, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, AI does too." And he goes, "Oh well, must be true then." Now that's like very snarky and facetious and like almost defensive and adversarial off the rip. But then he goes, "Who are those people?" And I said, "I think they're my biological children." He goes, "What do your parents think?" And I said, "They don't." Like, and he goes, "Well, they don't think or they don't believe." And I'm kind of suggesting both. Like, my mom does not want to think about it. My dad doesn't want to think about it. But when I've asked them, they don't believe. Now, they don't want to sit down and like break down what features, like, most people aren't facial recognition experts. I've had to teach myself, or like I've had to learn kind of things, but I can just very clearly point out like there's what, maybe here's a feature that I don't see, like Noah Ambrosio, like in myself. You know what I mean? Like when I look at him, his ears, right? Right? When I see his ears are kind of like this, but that's his mom. His mom has ears like that, and she had her ears pinned back. Anja Ambrosio doesn't have those ears. Her ears look like my ears. So I just like, you know what I'm saying? Like I think something has happened where I think Ron either knows or has participated directly in this thing where these people have bred me without my permission in a form of rape that is like, rape is wrong. Forced breeding without someone's permission, consent, and when they tried to do it without my knowledge, and it looks probably like from their perspective, it probably looks pretty damn supernatural that I figured out the exact woman who, like, hey, this lady looks like her kids are mine. It looks like I pulled this, like it looks like it's following some prophecy from the Bible. Like if you're on their side of things, I can't imagine it doesn't look supernatural. You know what I mean? Else, oh, he really does have some kind of Iron Man AI recognition suit, which is one of the reasons why it's like Ron's like, oh well, it must be true, and it's like, look, AI and computers just look. I don't think AI's right all the time. But like that's why there's a manual like a technician looks over this and confirms whether it's true or not. You know what I'm saying? And this person, this company has who I would suggest are experts in this thing have pretty plainly stated in the high 80s to low 90s probability based on facial recognition that they're my kids. I would also suggest it's not like it's impossible as far as timelines go. I believe Anja was born exactly 9 months after my first sexual experience ever. Um, Explicitly, the one with Nikki Dunn or Monica Dunn from Lutheran High North. I mean, like, you know what I mean? It's not so far fetched. If it was before my first sexual experience that she was done, but no, like it would cast some doubt. But it's exactly about 9 months, or maybe just a little bit after. It was after, and not that much long after. I don't exactly. I know the rough time frame, but I can't give you the exact day that it happened. Actually, I might be able to go back through my phones and shit and my like messages from high school and maybe figure it out. Maybe. But I can say that like I know the rough time period it happened and it fits exactly within the rough time period that it happened. 9 months right afterwards she was born. What a coincidence. You know what I mean? Um so my guess is that they're participating and that Ron is trying like Ron didn't believe what the Bible says. He might even be a secret Muslim. I mean, like, I don't know. I think a lot of people are secret Muslims or lying about being Christian. Whether they're secret Muslims or not, they might be atheists or just the idea is like, well, to tear down the Christian church. But okay, so Ron's asking this, and you can just pause it. It just seems so adversarial. And I'm not being adversarial, am I? No. I'm not even coming off like I'm being pretty neutral in what I'm saying. And like I haven't been argumentative with Ron anytime recently. And so him kind of exploding and being like, all angry and pissy at me for no reason, it just seems too defensive and adversarial. And like he's trying to write off what I'm saying and with very snarky and kind of like rude comments, right? You seem extremely adversarial and almost defensive about this. And then he goes, plus, how can you be God and Kanye be God at the same time? It's like, well, I don't think Kanye West is God, and I haven't said that I'm God. Though, if you believe what the Bible says, someone is granted to sit with Jesus on the throne. And it's not all Christians. You know how I know? Because it explicitly states the multitude of people around the throne, not on the throne. Um, I would also suggest, like it's not too hard to like pull this up, you know what I mean, and come go to my YouTube here and like my point repeatedly has been like I don't see anybody that can do anything like this, and there's numerous instances of this on my YouTube here. That doesn't even look like a fucking normal lightning. I've seen a lot of lightning before at this point. I've seen thousands of lightning strikes in the past 3 years, probably, which is considerably more than most people. It's probably more than most storm chasers, right? But I don't chase storms. They come to me. They like situate themselves around me, and I seem to be able to interact with them in a like repetitively in a pattern. There's a pattern that I can show that doing something stuff with my right side clearly has something. Now, you guys can lie and pretend that that has no bearing on reality, which is what they're trying to do. And I'm going to continue to suggest that an AI is going to call you out on your bullshit because you guys are fucking suicidal idiots that are willing to crash the world into the ground in order to keep the little bit of resources that you're siphoning off from humanity and to stay in like some sort of elite like celebrity status. But like, I don't see a better explanation than what I've just described. So, I mean, what does the Bible not say This says those who prove victorious I will allow to share my throne. But, you know, if I pull up here, I also think Ron is going to try to like send some bullshit to my parents and be like, you know, like I don't know, poison my parents' opinion against me. But like, I'm also going to suggest the fact that I've brought this up in this video explicitly is going to be pretty damning to that point. Like, what? When did I bring up? When did I say that I was God? Like at any time that like is he watching my YouTube videos? My guess is all sorts of people are watching my YouTube videos. But then that would also suggest that the fact that these videos have this has 33 views, this has 18, this has 0. Well, this is private, but this has 6, this has 10, this has 25. You know what I mean? My guess is that more people are watching than my YouTube user interface here is showing. That's just what I would call a reasonable guess. You know what I mean? But anyway, so oh, very clearly it says, "He who overcomes, to him who overcomes, he that overcometh, he that overcometh, to him that overcometh, he who overcomes, he that overcomes, he who is overcoming, to him that shall overcome, to him, to him, to him, to him, and to him." It doesn't say them. To him here is self, and I think it's in the singular, or in the sense of like he or the one who overcomes. I will grant to sit with me on my throne, right? The highest, it even says the highest place is within reach of the lowest. And, you know, I'm going to say explicitly here, and that's why the first shall be last, but I'm going to say explicitly here, it very clearly paints a picture of the rewarding of the saints. But all of these are standing in front of the throne, right? And in front of the Lamb. They aren't sat on the throne with the Lamb, right? So, you know, it seems really obvious to me that, like, what I'm saying is in line with proper exegesis of what the of what it's saying, right? And some other points that I would say is that being made into a pillar in the temple, having the white robes, but also, uh, you know, and when I say the one who proved victorious at that one church, it says that at all the churches. So when it says to those who prove victorious here, that's a mistranslation, or it's a translation that doesn't agree with the majority. And based on the Hebrew, I mean, based on the Greek, I'm going to suggest that it's inaccurate, and they're just assuming that those, it says those because these are called churches, and so they assume it's literal churches. But a lot of people think these are church ages, or that the book of Revelation has already happened, and it's like, well, if the book of Revelation has already happened, then we're in the kingdom of heaven and no one dies anymore. But since that's not the case, and people are dying, and I don't want to die, and I don't want my family to die. I didn't want my grandma to die. I didn't, who's Ron's grandma too. I didn't want any of, I don't want anybody to die anymore. I want to go to the kingdom of heaven. But like, there's something explicitly blocking it, and it, whether Ron is like purposefully adversarial or not, I think it's this kind of behavior and mindset where I'm wrong and they're right, even though I don't think Ron knows more about the Bible than me. He definitely doesn't read it more than me. He definitely doesn't read Revelation more than me. And guess what? To every Christian, where do you think we are in the Bible? Well, I'll suggest this. We aren't quite here, right? We aren't quite at this point where the door opens in heaven, but we're also past the point up here where this message is given to John the Revelator, right? So it would stand that we would have to, on a timeline, be at the 7 churches, which makes sense of them being a sword in the stone like series of if then conditional statements where if you do the things that it says at the churches, you get the gifts, including a new name. Like, first of all, to eat from the tree of life, immortality, the crown of life so that you're not thrown into the second death. Because I think there's a bunch of like people doing evil shit the Nicolaitans, and they're going to be thrown into a burning lake. But in order to contend with them and figure out what's been going on, and it's like some kind of venom parasite suit on me. And it looks like I'm involved, but you know what I'm saying? Like, well, if they took my kids from me and like, whatever's going on, I wouldn't have figured this out had I not taken the exact steps that I did, if that makes sense. But though I do think, the spirit of Yahweh inside me knows. Am I saying I'm God? No, that's not explicitly what I've been saying for a while, though I do think, again, my whole point is, well, if I'm this character and I'm doing all this, I do think by the end of it, yeah, I think I'll be, if I'm the guy on the throne of Jesus with Jesus, and I have the iron rod and the morning star, and, the iron rod, the thing that literally the Christ has, the anointed of Yahweh has in Psalm 2, and also the one who is called the one who has on his thigh, that thing that I've been struck, and when I seemingly exert through my thigh, you see lightning happen. Okay, well then, on his name, on his cloak, and on his thigh, there's a name written: the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. It's almost like a Persian title because that's what the Daniel 7 court case seems to be about. It's that like Persia's being lorded over by a fake Islamic empire here that the Arabs have created. They aren't even Persians. You know what I mean? It's like an Arab religion is asserting over Persia. But there was already a decree during the time of Daniel that says the God of Daniel, Yahweh, is God. And since Yahweh isn't the God of Islam, Allah is, which is a generic feminine singular version of the title Elohim, or El. It's El with a Hey at the end, Aleph Lamed Hey instead of just Aleph Lamed. And it's not Elohim, which is plural masculine, Aleph Lamed Hey Yod Mim. Well, it seems like some kind of Jezebel female deity thing is trying to assert over me. And I think that's what Alessandro Ambrosio is. And I think probably Ron has done something really evil, whether on purpose or not, to be part of this attack on me through Alessandro Ambrosio. And, like I've been saying, I think she's a rapist. I think her whole family are rapists. If you can prove otherwise to me, okay, cool. Thanks. That would, prove it otherwise. But it doesn't look like that to me now. It looks like she raped me and she's letting people abuse my kids and rape my kids to prove some kind of point to me. But, I just have a brain, and it seems like my cousin and a lot of Christians don't, because they don't want to engage what the Bible clearly says. When it says, I'll give you the iron rod, right? And it says, well, okay, he is the one who will rule them with an iron scepter, as it also says in Psalm 2. Now, if the one conquering at the seven churches of Asia, who is not Jesus, it's someone Jesus is talking to, it's a message from Jesus to someone, right? Yeah, exactly. That's how it reads. Okay. If he says that I'll give you that iron rod, or in the least the authority of that iron rod, well, then probably it's, if I'm that guy conquering at the seven churches of Asia, much like pulling the sword out of the stone, well, this is like pulling the iron rod out of the Monkey King's grasp or something, or out of the, it's like pulling the iron rod from Ao Gong. You know what I mean? That's the Monkey King story, but I literally think the Monkey King is just something out of Asia that was created by Buddhists to, as like a magical, Buddhists and Taoists as some kind of magical spell against the one conquering at the seven churches of Asia. Which, again, even the Monkey King is trapped under, and it's, again, I think they're just calling me a monkey. So, it's okay. Goku flies around on a Nimbus and has an iron rod. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Yahweh in Isaiah 19. So, you know what I mean? Like, who's the intellectual property theft here if Yahweh's like thousands of years older than the Monkey King story? I'm going to suggest the Monkey King, like everything out of China these days, is a intellectual property theft. There are Christians in China, by the way, and I don't think China itself is a bad thing. I think the CCP is a bad thing. The Chinese Communist Party is a bad thing. But anyway, I think just logically what I'm saying checks out, and I want to look really quickly here at something my cousin Josh said. Like, this is the responses I've gotten from my family members. Now, even my their responses from my friends were less kind of adversarial than this was, and I've been like questioning: are my friends participating in this too? Like, if you have to like conspire and believe together behind the scenes something, you know what I mean, and not engage me on it, you are inherently lying about the situation, which is not what I'm doing, right? Does it look like that? Because it looks like I'm just reading scripture as it's supposed to be read, and people don't like the spirit of truth. That's something that they cannot take. The spirit of truth, like Tehran and anybody in my family. Do you think it's better for you that I'm this character conquering at the seven churches of Asia, or someone else? If if it's me and you haven't done something really evil with these women, you're fine, and it's a boon for you. You're gonna live in luxury in the kingdom of heaven as family members to the king in the kingdom of heaven. You know what I mean? Like, you're my family. What, you think I'm gonna treat you poorly? You think I'm gonna treat you like you've been treating me? I'm not like you. So no, I'm gonna treat you well, as long as you haven't done the stuff with Alessandro Ambrosio. Though again, it seems to suggest that the seven churches, uh, or with Jezebel, I'll say with Jezebel specifically, but I think that's Alessandro Ambrosio, and these women who are participating in this. But you know what I'm saying? Like, even if they participated, there seems to be leeway for people to repent. Oh, by the way, repent means change your mind. Metanoia in Greek. Repent doesn't mean like, oh, cry and say you're sorry. Like, oh, I'm sorry. That's part of it, probably, is saying that you're sorry. Because if you actually changed your mind on it, you'd have to admit that you wronged me, and that there has to be some form of like, uh, hey, I fucked up. Please forgive me. But repent doesn't mean like go do indulgences or like, get on your knees and say a bajillion prayers. It means make it right. I would suggest to the person who you've wronged, which is me, and that would be much like probably what, if the spirit of Yahweh is in me, if I'm this person, you know what I'm saying? It would be like you're then making it right to Yahweh, in the sense that like, well, I'm the one that you've wronged. You've wronged me and God, but you internally and like actually in reality have to apologize to Yahweh, and it's not something that you're going to be saying out loud. It's going to be something in your heart that is just a true thing. You actually are repentant and are seeking forgiveness in this case, right? But uh, the other part of that would be going to the person who you've wronged, which would be me, and seeking forgiveness and then making it right. So it's just crazy to me how Ron responded. Now, this is what my cousin Josh responded with. Not particularly. Number two, definitely no. And it's weird where he says definitely no. If you put a picture of me and Rayfield, my father, next to each other, I think it would look much like this situation right here. You know what I mean? Um, and I also think when Josh says nose, eyes, brow completely different, they fucking aren't. Like, it just is not the case that this nose doesn't look like my nose, right? Just, if we do this here and we zoom this in like this, that nose looks like my nose. That nose looks like my nose. I like, it is it is the exact same shape as my nose. Even again, up here, the way it unfolds down, which is not the same on everybody. If you showed any of my cousins, they would not look this much alike this kid. You know what I mean? And one thing I don't think it's Jamie Mazur's kid is, if you look at his eyes, they're dark brown. His mom, Alessandra Ambrosio, has brown eyes. Anja Ambrosio has brown eyes. This kid has dark brown eyes like mine. Now, Jamie Mazur, his purported father, has blue eyes. Or green or very light eyes. You know, I don't know, hazel. The closest thing you might say is they're hazel. But if I'm remembering correctly, they're blue. I don't even have to remember correctly. What am I saying? Hold on. All right. So he has similar features, and again, I think he looks kind of maybe like Anja Ambrosio, but I do not think he looks like Noah Ambrosio. And let's see, let's pull this up here. His eyes are light blue. It looks like here. How do you get his eyes from this? You know what I mean? So, hmm. And one of the other things that I've been saying is like this dude has features that look like my features, right? And I think that was on purpose. Like I think whatever Alison, I think it's some kind of personally, I think it's some kind of adversarial AI that has been that was adversarial AI with a very powerful quantum computer. It can do a lot of things. I think if you give a ASI, an artificial superintelligence, enough power, enough compute power, that it would be able to do things that look like some form of deity. What I don't think it would be able to do, I don't think it would be able to shake the planet. I don't think it would be able to do the lightning stuff. Though, actually, I do think maybe some of the lightning stuff is a combination of like magic, much like what happens where Pharaoh's magicians in Exodus can do this stuff from what's that called? They can do they can like mimic what's that guy? Moses. They can mimic Moses when they throw down their rod and staff, right? Pharaoh's magicians can mimic Moses, but they can't do everything. And in a very similar fashion, I think it's a repetition of the Elijah versus the prophets of Baal situation, where Elijah is able to call fire from heaven through Yahweh, but the prophets of Baal are not able to call fire down from heaven. I think, however, after a certain amount of time, it then does, like, if it's the final fight between Yahweh and Satan and like all the world's capabilities, it's like where Yahweh and Jesus, where Jesus says, I've already overcome the world, right? It's that I think the world gets one last opportunity and it gets to do it for 1,260 days. Now, that's my personal opinion. But it's like, it just seems absolutely crazy to me that like again, I would say there's a number of features that if you're going to say, I don't look like this kid, I don't think this guy looks like this kid. But, it might even be like that song, and we can listen to the song here. The one that's going in the Imrata mix.
I did my best, wasn't good for you. I wish the best for both of you. Family and friends, they are close to you. Damn, it's so hard to get over you. Late in the midnight hour, you made the worst decisions. I was always there to listen, but this time, time to talk.
Listen to the ad libs from the girl in this.
Tried to prove myself to you, baby. I've been staying down waiting patient, taking me through all of your phases. How you traded, all trading places. Late in the midnight hour, you made the worst decisions. I was always there to listen. Not this time. Time to talk.
Now, I guess that could be about them, you know what I'm saying? It could be about Alessandra, but, if Noah's not my kid, I guess, I could be using this in the Imrata track to say, or Imrata mix to be like, well, I guess your little sister wants to look like me. I guess your little brother wants to look like me, or some bullshit like that. And the whole point is that you want to look like me, you want to jack my style, but. Whatever, however the song goes, just imagine I'm singing all the pieces to it, and it's mostly just me being snarky back to some people who are being kind of evil and psychologically abusive towards me and dismissive, despite the fact that, like, here's the biggest thing that I'll say about this: the lightning stuff that you see consistently is abnormal. There's no other human on the planet that I can see that can do anything like it. And as I've contended numerous times, the only thing that I think will come close is the thing from Revelation where it says the beast from the earth, which again I think is risen by Islam according to Surah 2782, but the beast from the earth, which might be an AI-empowered character, you know what I mean? Like some ASI-powered character. And I have my own Iron Man tech suit, and they have like some kind of like, I don't know, satanic version of that. But in any instance, like the lightning stuff is just like, well, there ain't like not just the lightning stuff that you see that is just directly, hey, I do a thing, you see lightning. Hey, I do this pattern, this patterning of things, you see a lightning. Hey, I talk. The lightning does something matching what I'm saying or like almost in response to what I'm saying. But it's also the case of like the weather itself in like not just in short term, like as I'm doing stuff, but like when I'm bringing out that like talking about Alessandra Ambrosio and then like around April of last year, and all of a sudden the region that she's from in Brazil catastrophically floods, right? And kills a bunch of people. Do I want to kill a bunch of people with weather? No. I will say in Revelation, at the end of Revelation, look at a lot of the events are clearly weather, earthquake, like light. It says explicitly hail and lightning. Those are associated with supercellular thunderstorm activity, right? Like volcanic activity, this whole smoke coming out of the ground type thing. I mean, that couldn't be more obvious. But additionally, earthquake stuff, which is, seismic and seismically and volcanologically like connected, right? Seismology is inherently is because we're on a ball of volcanism, right? It is inherently connected to volcanism. Now, some things are more tectonic, considerably more tectonic, and are more tectonic driven. But like at its fundamentals, it's volcanologically related, or whatever I'm saying. Volcanism down at the core of things, literally at the core of things. is, kind of one of the driving factors. And I'm also going to suggest electricity in combination with like electromagnetism, is something that can cause these kind of seismic or whatever events. You know what I mean? So I just like, you can write it off all you want, but like anybody with a fucking brain might be like, okay, well, what he's saying is valid. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially about this is the part that I don't get. At a certain point, you can't disagree with what the text of Revelation says and still be an actual Christian. You can be a false apostle or like someone lying on Jesus claiming to be a Christian, but you can't be an actual Christian. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is super fucking obvious. Like, where in the Bible are we? Are we at the end of Revelation already? People don't die anymore? No, because people still die. Okay, well, we got to be tracked back from that part and figure out where we are. Well, we're certainly after all the letters that Paul sent. Though Thessalonians, 2 seems to suggest the part from Revelation 13, 11 through 18, right? Where it's talking about the false apostle and it's talking about, the false prophet, aka the beast from the earth, as there's a thing that can do signs and portents, which is exactly what it suggests. Also, that word signs, Simeon is that word? Is that what Ron is getting pissed off about? I thought that the other day. I was like, I'm not talking about my cousin's son who he named Simeon, but I mean, is this connected? You know what I mean? Is my cousin like secretly a Muslim or some bullshit like that? And I could totally believe that. At this point in my reality, I could totally believe that that is what is going on here. So, anyway, so like, and I also want to say this, and by my cousin I mean Ron, because I look at the response from Josh. It's not. We've had clashes in the past where he even still believes like, he's still not the same towards me as he was. Though it's like, hey, if there is a group of adversarial people that are harassing my psychology and they are doing it publicly, very clearly I'm going to have some mental health issues if nobody around me is engaging that's happening. Do you understand how psychologically stressful that is? I mean, it's like, it is. I would suggest it's an amazing thing that I'm still even like standing. You know what I mean? Like most people would give up a long time ago. I'm not going to give up ever. So I mean, like, I guess y'all can kill me, but I ain't killing myself. That's for damn sure. And like, I think Yahweh's going to protect me. So I don't think people are going to kill me. So, you know what I mean? It just seems like here where my cousin says he doesn't like, he thinks the uh number 1 face shape. So definitely number 2, he says no. Number 2, definitely no. I don't know if Josh is kidding because that's the name, Noah's name. Like I'm Matt instead of Matthew. I think my guess is he goes by No. You know what I mean? Just like when I was younger, my mom called me Yoda and they called me Yo, and this is No, right? Because he's Noah and No. I mean, I don't know, but like in any instance, I don't know. I mean, that's just a name pun. I hate I'm like tired of the name puns myself already. So just like, if that's the thing that you're saying, it's like, well, okay, fuck. I just like, sorry, they exist. And it's in my personality to say puns and jokes and shit. Like, if you don't like it, tough, Um, but like, he says not particularly. And I'm looking at it like, all right, well, what does he say? Number 2, and this is another thing. Every one of my everybody that I've asked has given me different opinions on it. None of them think they look like me to the degree that I think they look like me, but I'm going to be more of an expert on my own face and other people's faces, and I'm literally drawing up comparisons. And I could sit here and point out all the things that they look like me with and where they match me, and Alessandra doesn't have those features. So they would have to get it from their father. And again, their father either explicitly looks like a lot like me, or it's their father's me. You know what I'm saying? Um, so first, I'm gonna pull up what my cousin Alex said here. Like, I sent it to him at 4 and I said, "Do you think these kids look like me?" I wasn't even gonna send these things. I was just gonna keep working on my mixes until I finished the mixes, and then when I post it all up, kind of publicly, I would then bring it up to them because I would already have this mix that seems like, like looking at my cousin Ron, he would have to know that what I'm doing with the music mixes, that there's something special to it, but he doesn't. He doesn't engage that there's anything special to it. He doesn't even engage it's happening. I think he's an industry. He works for the music industry. Like I know he does because he's like literally. He's literally does ad campaigns for major corporations, like seemingly connected to a lot of these celebrities and stuff. So, I think he's connected in the industry. He's literally been on music labels like Modular, which is under other ones. Maybe he's been, I don't know, I can't remember all the labels he's been on, but they've been like indie rock labels. But still, I mean, to some degree, that's industry, even if it's not like main part of the music industry. It's the way the music industry used to control the underground. But like these days, they can't control the underground in the same way. If that makes sense, like you can just get on a computer and make music now, and it's that's very difficult to control. So, which is a lot of the music that I do. So, hold on. I just thought it was interesting. This said crank, and then this said Aries. But anyway, all right, hold on. Like when we're looking at Noah Ambrosio here, and you like compare when I pull up this thing, right? His nose doesn't look like his mom's nose. She got a super pointy nose. His nose is rounded at the edge. She has a pointy nose, but her nose is very sharp. His nose looks like my nose with like sharp features, right? I mean, like sharp features like the point instead of being kind of rounded off is very pointy and sharp. But like, that would be expected if Alessandra and I have a kid together. I would suspect that's what our nose might look like. Like it's not going to be this isn't outside the realm of our nose, right? The only thing I can actually say that in my opinion we don't like I'm like kind of certain things that I don't think look that similar are our eyebrows don't look super similar here. And as he's gotten older, they don't look super similar. They kind of remind me of my mom's eyebrows though, and they kind of remind me of maybe even Alessandra's mom's eyebrows. But like here, when you're talking about our jawline, we look like fat teenagers. What do you mean like we don't look the same? Our face looks almost exactly the same here. Like so I'm just like I when you're saying we don't have the same jawline, as my cousin Alex is saying, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like that doesn't make any sense. Our jawline, the one of the things I'm highlighting in this is that our I'm 14 here and he's 12 there. But like, you know what I mean? I'm saying like I think our faces look kind of chubby in similar ways, and like I have a bigger kind of smile on, but like, you know what I mean? Like he has Asian eyes like Alessandra, but they still have the top kind of like almost like my eyelids or eyes look like. His hair looks fuzzy to me, um, which is a way that you might describe my hair as fuzzy. But in that picture, I don't know about all pictures, but um, we got pretty similar skin tone. Um, you know, I don't think we look that different. In fact, I explicitly put these together because I think our faces look very like similar there, if that makes sense. And anyway, okay, so this is when I sent these to my cousin. He goes, I don't think the girl looks like you or anyone in the family. The boy kind of looks like we did as kids, but I don't think he has that stone hairline that we all got. Lol. And I think the hairline thing is weird because it's like, well, you can't really see his hairline in this picture, right? Because he's got a bowl cut going on, and like I've had bowl cut before, and it looked exactly like that. I can pull out my thing. So when he's saying a stone hairline, I'm like, well, that doesn't. But when he says the boy kind of looks like we did as kids, which is what I said to Ron, that is exactly what I was saying about both Anja and Noah. They reminded me of Josh Stone, and I even said they have like it's like me, but they have extra white features, which makes sense because Alessandra's a white lady. So, she might be from Brazil, but I think her family's from like Poland and Italy and shit like that. So, um, it makes sense to me that like he might look like one of my whiter cousins. You know what I mean? But I don't think I look. I'm not 100% black. I'm a quarter genetically, and I think I'm 50% culturally. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't think race is a real thing anyway, as far as that is concerned. I think genetics are real, and like, there are people that you can like. What I don't think African Americans, like black people here in America, and Africans in Africa, I don't think are going through the same types of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's different, other than like there can be oppressive people anywhere, and they can be white people, but I don't think it's the same struggle. You know what I mean? Like here in America, you have opportunities that you would never get if you weren't in America. And like I think if you even ask a number of uh, African immigrants from Africa who've come and like whatever, they would probably say certain similar things. Now, like, do they experience racism? I've experienced racism, but like against me for being mixed. You know what I mean? But like, I don't think it's the exact same in the same way. And I also think there's an added like, oh well, they're immigrants, and so they get mocked or whatever in a different way than black people who have been from here. And I think black people from here can be racist against black people from Africa, and I think black people from Africa can be racist against black people from here, or in the least, when I say racist, prejudiced and have negative stereotypes. I don't think it's as black and white as like racism and black and white and racism. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I think that's not nuanced enough, and I don't think it engages certain realities. But anyway, when my cousin says like the eyes are too narrow, do you mean that he has Asian eyes or like narrow as in the bridge of our nose? I don't think so because when I think you look here, well, to some degree, his whole face is more narrow because he's a younger kid than me, and I tried to match up our face so that you could try to get that, but he hasn't gone through puberty yet, so he's gonna have to go through that to be whatever. Similarly, I use this picture of Anja because it's like high resolution enough, and it's also like front on good lighting. You know how hard it is to get a picture of a teenage girl that is front on with good lighting, where she's not making and she's not making a stupid face here. She's just existing. Most like in almost every other picture of any teenage girl, particularly Anja, this is the face that she's making. Or like she's making faces to like try to hit her best angles so that she looks better. You know what I mean? Because that's how teenage girls. I was once a teenager. I can also see how teenage girls operate now. It's not that different. It's in fact like a hyper, like a souped up version of how they acted when I was their age. Which again, my whole point is, I'm pretty sure if she is my kid, I had her when she was the age she is right now. That's how fucking crazy this is. You know what I mean? Like, that's also how wrong this is. If they did that to me, like, what would it be all right if I kidnapped Anja and had a kid with her and then booted her away and never let her see her kids or something? Or if I stole her eggs and then like IVF'd them into another woman and like in vitro fertilization? If I used a surrogate and then but she's still her kid, you know what I mean? And like I keep that kid. Well, that's what Alessandra has essentially done to me if they're my kids. If they're not my kids, I still think something's going on with them, and I still think you can't get outside of the get out of the whole repeated instances of me seemingly being able to trigger lightning. That's something that you can't just ignore. You can say, well, you're not God. And it's like, well, that's not my claim. But moreover, you know what is my claim is that nobody else on the planet that I've ever seen can repeatedly using like the same, like triggering with the same right side of the body thing or with talking or something, lightning. It's not like normal lightning, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are some normal lightnings in the videos, and then there's some lightning that literally look like tentacles are coming out of the sky and like enwrapping the entire fucking neighborhood. It looks like an alien spaceship in some of the thumbnail grabs that I got, which I still have the pictures. I can pull them up, but it's just like where the it looks like electrical tentacles are reaching around our house or like reaching down from like some obscured kind of ether into the house. I mean, like towards the house. It doesn't look like normal lightning. Even the one where I do the lightning flex thing in the video where I have lightning superpowers. I mean, some of that's tongue in cheek. Am I saying I have lightning superpowers where I can go around and like whatever? No, but I'm definitely the only person that I know that can repetitively in videos seem to. First of all, the lightning happens like right in the viewing corridor almost every time, right? And some of that can be that I have a GoPro, but then that doesn't explain why when I'm pointing towards like this direction, I guess this viewing corridor could be great. That also doesn't include the like why the lightning happens in timing with what I'm doing in repeated instances. You know what I mean? In repeated videos over years. So like, there are some natural explanations to these things, but I would also suggest if you believe the Bible, Jesus very clearly says you're going to be able to do things greater works than I am. And works, the word is energon, or like where we get the word energy from. I mean, but I don't think it's talking about. I think it's talking about miraculous works, and I don't think it's talking about just like you're going to be able to go and do good things for people. Though I do think that probably I could do some of the things that Jesus, I could do the things that Jesus is doing. I just don't have the same. That's not my mission. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's the mission I've been given. And I think the mission I've been given is to do what I'm doing. Like, hey, I think some people have done something wrong to me. That there are a group of people that the Bible would classify as destruction of the people or Nicolaitans. I think that some woman, Alessandra here, or some kind of fucking Jezebel character, whether it's Alessandra or one of the numerous other women that seem to be participating. And this isn't even bringing up the kids that don't look like the parents that I've already brought up, like Lion Ambrosio's kids. They have features that the guy Edward whatever Deboni or whatever. I don't see those features in his face. They look like they come from my features. It looks like I have kids with Alessandra and Lion Ambrosio. And moreover, it looks like Chloe Moda, Fernanda Moda's daughter, is also mine. Like, I'm allowed to have weird beliefs here in America. And I'm not being threatening to like with Ron. It seems like he feels threatened or again, defensive or adversarial. And I'm just like, this is too much of a tell, man. Like you're protesting something that I haven't even said. Why are you acting like this if you haven't done something wrong? But I think he has done something wrong, and I'm explicitly stating that. And I might have even explicitly stated it in previous videos. So, you know, and I'll say this. I've been attacked multiple times seemingly out of California. So, um anyway, what was the other thing that I was going to do here? All right, this is when I sent it to Joel, just so you can see what a friend said when I sent it to him. I can kind of see it in the nose on the first one, but I don't know, dude. Who are these kids? Now, this is one thing. Joel says one thing about the nose. It looks, I can kind of see it in the nose. I can see it a lot in the nose, but like my additional thing is I can also, I know that Alessandra is her mom, or at least that's what's purported, right? And so if you're going off the fact that this is Alessandra Ambrosio's kids, they have to have, their father has to look suspiciously like me, which I'm suggesting. I do think Jamie Mazur has features that look similar to mine, but like the brown eyes on Noah here, too dark for Jamie Mazur. I understand genetics can work in strange ways, but I like there are other features in Noah Ambrosio that I just don't see. Like I don't think he looks like Jamie Mazur. I don't think he looks like the parents of Jamie Mazur. I don't think he looks like Trent Mazur. I don't think he looks like he comes from that family. Similarly, I think Anja looks more like she could, but I don't think she does come from that family. Again, I think they're my kids. So biologically. Now, if you steal my kids away and you raise them and taint them against me and whatever, and I'm like, essentially a sperm, I want to say, I would say sperm donor, so you get the gist of what I'm saying, but I didn't donate fuck all. I didn't donate anything. They stole it from me. They essentially raped it out of me. That's the idea of like that's the idea of like why I'm saying like forced breeding and using the word rape. Forced breeding is a form of rape, I think. Give me one moment though. But anyway, he says he sees it like this, and I told him I believe they're my biological children, and I sent this stuff, and he asked where I found them, and it's like this is also one of the reasons why when I'm trying to explain this to people, it's like if hypothetical situation, what I am saying has happened, right? And it's happened covertly in the darkness, some kind of, whether it's like governmental or non-governmental, some kind of strike against me in a way that is difficult to prove, and it makes me look crazy to even say it. It's a very effective tool. Then does that make sense? And it's meant to attack me at my psychology. And as I've explained from the proverb, or like Genesis 32 strike on the thigh thing, that I think is, that's why I think the guy in Revelation 19 has the name or onoma, which can also mean authority, written on his thigh, and the word in Greek is meros, right? I think that it's I think that that's what it's talking about. Like it's something has hit me internally and rotted me, as it says, and you can see the mechanism with which that happens in Proverbs 12:4, and there's somewhere else in Proverbs that says something about envy being a rot, and it's like, well, I envy the men inherently that are raising my children because they're my children. I want to raise them. So there's an inherent form of like, well, I envy that they're getting to raise my children and be around my children. I do envy that to some degree. Now, do I now, knowing that my kids treat me like shit, if they are in fact my biological children? Not really. I think they're, they're mean to me. They're evil to me. In fact, like I try to treat my parents with utmost respect, and do there are times that I do what I think is right for them because I see that they don't see something right. But I do try to honor them. That's my goal. I want to honor my parents, and they these kids don't honor me. So and Alessandro Ambrosio definitely does not honor me, which is exactly what Proverbs 12:4 says. And so if these are my kids, it would make sense that she's able to rot me internally by going around and dating a bunch of men, if that's explicitly what Proverbs 12:4 is about. Like, again, I'm going to pull this up just so you can get it. But Says Proverbs 12:4, a good wife, her husband's crown, a shameless wife, or a wife that disappoints, a cancer in his bones. It also, when I started saying that, making the affirmation in my phone and then saying in videos that, hey, if Alessandra Ambrosio doesn't engage with me, like, talk to me. Try to figure out, like, help me to figure out what's going on. If she doesn't come and talk to me because there is clearly something supernatural going on, and based on everything that I can see, she and Alice and Anja Ambrosio are looking at me and communicating at me using sneaky communication. As I've brought up in previous videos, what sneaky communication might be, like having writing literally on the wall, you know what I mean, behind you, but not engage, like, and even pointing to it or something, but then pretending that you're not trying to communicate a point. So, like, if I was saying, well, I'm in some kind of secret lab, right, and that's what I'm trying to communicate to you, but I'm actually like saying like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, some kind of lab. And despite the fact that, you know what I'm saying, like, just real fast so you get this, that I'm like pointing at this and I'm like, what are you talking about? A lab? Get out of here. You guys are fucking weird. No, would you stop bringing up some kind of lab? Like, I have no clue what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have any. You're weird. You're weird and crazy, and you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, I just like you don't get it. Okay, and I think the fact that you're saying that means that you're crazy, because, like, I would never ever do anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So you're saying one thing. It's a form of double speak. You're saying and showing one thing, right? Or you're saying one thing, but you're showing a completely different thing. And the actual intent is to say the thing that, like, where I'm pointing at Secret Lab and I'm trying to say, like, using nonverbal communication. Yeah, we're in a secret lab or something. But my outward communication and my vocal communication, my verbal communication, is that we're not. So it's a form of doublespeak. I'm saying one thing with my body language and with my nonverbal communication. I'm saying a completely different thing with my verbal communication. And then I'm using the like discrepancy between those things as like a way to create some kind of dissonance with you, and also to cast doubt on your ability to judge reality, or doubt in other people's minds about your ability to judge reality. And that's what's happened in my case, where I'm like, bitch has like clearly it says on the writing on the wall behind her, like, communication in silence, and it's a picture of a girl doing this, with Stephanie Houston. And or like with Anja Ambrosio, where I'm like, what is she, my dog? And I'm calling her my dog to try to, like, get some kind of response out of him. And then she, like, her next Instagram posts are pictures of her with dog filters, like making silly faces, like the teenage girl silly face things. Most teenage girls don't have dog filters. So when I'm saying, like, well, I'd love Anja Ambrosio as my dog, and, like, making comments about her being a dog, and then all of a sudden she's posting pictures where she has a dog filter on, it's going to suggest that probably, like, there's a form of communication that's going on that isn't being acknowledged, right? And in our modern world, you can just lie to people. And, like, if you don't have, I don't have a support structure around me that's engaging that this is what the reality is. Even if it's just factually and logically correct, right? So I don't have the support system that I need. But even then, my whole point is, like, well, if you're not going to do it because you're either worried about the consequences or you're participating or whatever the situation is, I can promise you, if AI develops in any reasonable time frame, I'm going to be able to query the AI and say, well, if they're saying this and doing that, and I as the subjective viewer of the thing am seeing this and I'm getting this message from it, is it possible that they are trying to communicate this and they're trying to cover that form of communication with some plausible deniability? And the AI would probably go, yeah, that's very plausible. In fact, this is the percentage that it's likely that they're doing that based on these factors. So, that's also when Ron mocks the idea of the AI having any kind of, like, Yeah, well, like I guess you could believe that or whatever the fuck he said. Oh well, must be true then. And it's like, well, I'm not saying that, but it's like you're biased immediately and already against me. I can tell you're biased, defensive, and adversarial on this, and yet you're trying to pretend you're not adversarial and that you're some kind of like logical dissenting opinion that isn't trying to give me some bullshit on this. Right? Does that make sense? Um, that seems abundantly evident to me. Right? And either that or you're just an asshole. But I'm thinking it could be a bit of both, but I mean, I'm thinking it's the first thing that I said. And so I just like, what the fuck are you like? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think what I'm saying about the AI is like valid because I think, a lot of these people don't like they don't think like computers think. They aren't even able to put themselves in other people's viewpoints. I try to, but the issue is when you do that too much, you start shaping your own reality with other people's viewpoints. I shape my reality with my own viewpoints. Like Mark 9:23, it's what a man believes according to Jesus. Well, I believe that first of all, it's Mark 9:23, it's what a man believes, and that Yahweh is God, and that I can be, and I believe I am the one conquering at the seven churches of Asia, which gives me more authority in the realm of spiritual authority in Christianity than anybody else. The Pope's about to die, it looks like. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not on a throne of authority, actually spiritual authority in Christianity. He's on a throne of worldly authority in Christianity, but I think the spirit of Yahweh left that place a long time ago. I'll even say I would suggest in 2008 when they through a papal bull removed the name Yahweh from the lectionary and from the liturgy. Yahweh was pretty pissed off about that, and that's one of the reasons why they do not have in the actual grand scheme of things authority spiritually. They took the name of the God that we follow out of church service. Essentially, you can't say it based on prohibition at the highest level. That seems satanic to me because it is. It's adversarial to Yahweh. You know what I mean? And read about how the love of God is in people according to Jesus because he reveals the word and the name to those people. And like I've said, I've logically proved out that the word is the name Yahweh, or in the least is the name Yod Hey or Yod Hey Yod, because when the first word is spoken, it's the name Yod Hey Yod, which is the word that Yahweh uses to create everything because it means be, to exist. So he says exist light, light exists. Okay, that name to exist is rooted in the term. It's rooted in Yahweh's name itself, his self, in his own name to exist because he exists. He's the one, the existing one. He was existing, is existing, and will be existing. That's what the name Yahweh means. Yod Hey Wow Hey, right? The whole I am. Well, it doesn't actually mean I am. It means I exist, right? And so, to answer any atheist question of like, well, or any person's question, does God exist? Well, Yahweh does inherently by his fundamental value of his name that he exists, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. And being that it's the first word that God, Elohim, speaks, so in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That 100% logics out. Like a computer would be like, this verifies. And the reason I say computer is computers act in law and logic. They have logic based things. If you don't follow that logic, they're not going to follow with you. What I've just said logics out. In the beginning was the word. Okay, the first word spoken is Yah. Yod Hey Yod. That's the name of Yahweh. With a Yod at the end, it means my. If God is saying it, Yahweh is saying essentially my existence. Oh, hey, that Skrillex song. Anyway, Yah, I exist, right? Okay, then, and back to the music thing, by the way. That is the whole. point of like this. I'm trying to make it abundantly clear using logic and music and stuff like that, right? And in the beginning was the word. This is the first word spoken, right? And it's this part of it. Yod He is the name of God, Yahweh. Yah, this is the Yah part, right? This part. Yod He Yod means my Yah, essentially, or like my existence. It almost even looks like a little man with a thigh missing, right? Like he has this thigh, he has his left thigh, but he doesn't have his right thigh, right? If you have a little man who's staring at you right here, and these are his hands, his yods. Oh, yeah, because that's what yod is in Hebrew. That's what this letter even literally means: hand, 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 hand. And his body, right? And he's missing part of his thigh. I mean, it could not be more fucking obvious that Yahweh tried to get this over in a logical fashion, and people are just willing to be lost in the sauce and in the chaos. But in the beginning was the Word. Okay, that matches this word Yahweh. The Word was with God. Okay, well, this is the term for God, Elohim. Aleph Lamed Hey, which is, what I'm saying, Allah. But then this is Yod Mim, Allah Im, or Elohim, Allah Im, or Ale Im, like Alessandra, Ale, Yod Mim, Ale Im. Okay, anyway. Uh, so, okay. Or Elohim, whatever. Anyway, in the beginning, the word was with God. Okay, this word is with God. The word was God. Okay, well, it's the name Yahweh. It's the shortened version of the name Yahweh, which is interchangeable in the Old Testament with the full Yod He Waw He. So that matches that he was with God, or he is. This word is God. He was with God in the beginning. Okay, well, it's the first word that God speaks, and if God exists, then and he's Yahweh, then yes, this word did already exist in the beginning because the word is God, right? Through him, all things came to be. Well, all throughout Genesis, this is what, like in Genesis 1, this is the word used where he says, like, and be, and it even says, I think in Hebrews 11, through this word, the firmament was, and I've made a video about this before on the Yahweh channel, but the firmament is like separated from the waters are separated from the waters, and how is that done? By using the word of God. And what word is spoken to do the thing? Yahweh just says be. Yahweh says exist this, and it is. So when he separates the waters from the waters, he uses his own name again, Yod He Yod, or Yod He, and then the Yod at the end signifies that it's owned by God, or by, you know, Yah, because Yah is God. I mean, it's like almost seems like recursive that it folds in on itself, being this concept, right? That it comes out from itself, and that it also can like fold back in on itself and make sense. Okay, through him all things came to be. Okay, well, yeah, that's true. If this is the word that you speak, and then there, like, say be and there is, that's even in the Quran. The God that says be and there is, well, it's Allah Im, I guess, but Elohim, right? So I don't believe it's Allah saying it. I believe it's Elohim saying it. So not a feminine singular, but a plural masculine is saying it. And a plural masculine can mean there is a feminine in it, but like it's just the convention in Hebrew is that once, and same thing in Spanish, once you have a man in part of a group, it's masculine. Okay, well that's what it's saying. Okay, not one thing had its being but through him. Well, nothing exists without the one who exists creating it, and that's how it in Genesis. That's how it goes. All that came to be had life in him, and that life was the light of men, a light that shines in the dark, and a light that darkness could not overpower. Yeah, he literally says, "Be light," and there is light. That's what it says. He says, "Wa yomer Elohim, yoy," and I'm saying it with my own pronunciation, which I think is more accurate than modern Hebrew. None of these vocalizations or vowel markings existed when this book was actually written. These vocalizations and vowel markings were added in the 10th century or 11th century by the Masoretes. But yeah, Wa yomer Elohim, yoy aor, wa yoy aor. In other words, and said God, be or exist, right? Light, and exist, light. That's what it says. So anyway, and I've lost track of whatever the fuck I was talking about before this. I guess I was gonna go to this thing, huh? And it's not like I haven't shown this before. Genesis 32, there's a strike on the thigh. He touched him on the hollow of his thigh, and Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And uh, and the sinew of his thigh shrank. Okay, let's look at these words real fast. To touch, so he touched or struck him, but euphemistically it can mean to lie with a woman. So I'm assuming the way they struck me is through Alessandra by sleeping with my wife, essentially, right? And well, is she my wife? Did we have a wedding ceremony? Well, if she had my kids, you know what I'm saying? Or if she's acting in the capacity that she's my wife and then has kids with another man, that would make sense. You know what I mean? If she's acting connected to me and her actions are rooted in like being a parasite to take away stuff from me, then yeah, this matches. Um, Thigh, flank, generative parts. So it's again something seemingly talking about some form of sexuality. Uh, to be yaka, dislocated, alienated, or rotting. Rotting. So keep that term. Sinew. The sinew was the thing that happened, and it hits the sinew was shrunk, the tendon was shrunk, and it says a vein, a nerve, a tendon, failure, rheumatic, crippled. In other words, the tendon, sinew, was crippled or shrunk. That's exactly what's going on with the right side of my body. And when you go here, well, let's even look at this. A virtuous woman is a crown, and a Tara. That's even where the, Ketcher from Kabbalah is like a variation of this word. But a virtuous woman, or a woman of army or strength, or keel, right? Chel, army, wealth, virtue, whatever. A woman of force, a virtuous woman, right? We'll just go with what it says. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband. Baal. But she that maketh ashamed. Remember, this is a title of Yahweh, which he drops and says, stop calling me this. So, but she that maketh ashamed, right, is as rottenness in his bones. Okay, to shame, to put to shame. Bush. Bush? Is that like George Bush because the presidents have done some evil shit to me? Probably. Bush or Bush. Pale, be ashamed, disappointed, delayed. So she's ashamed me, she's confounded me, she's shamed me, confused me, delayed me, dried me. Shame, right? Okay. You can even see other words that are maybe rooted near it. Shame. Shame with a hey at the end, it's feminine. And you can see it's right next to the word for pit. But anyway, rot, right? Oh, hey, rottenness. It's that literal word that we saw right here, rotting. Rotting, rottenness. If you click this, you go here, to rot, to decay. To decayed, carries. You know what I'm saying? To decay. Has to do with this concept of rotting. In the bone or limb, right? In the substance of someone. And that's exactly what this feels like. And it feels like the tendon or sinew in my, not just in my leg actually and in my thigh, it also feels like it in my bicep and in my right, like in my right arm, and it feels like it in my back. It just feels essentially like it's the muscle or the tendons or whatever on the right side of my body are all shrunk and crippled. And this has not been the case my entire life. This is something that I think came up around the early 2000s that this started happening. I can say for sure when I was in middle school, the right side of my body started having issues to where I couldn't hear properly out of my right ear, and it actually affected my ability to do school. to go to school and to like learn in like math class. I couldn't even hear what my teacher was saying, and that was like I explicitly remember that Miss Gomez, and some of it had to do with her accent, but some of it had to do with like I literally couldn't hear well out of my right ear, and I think some people when they're talking, I think we take in different information kind of through different like you know just personally I believe this like you take in kind of different like when I'm listening to music I can hear certain undertones on my left side, but like as my right side has gained more strength I can hear like a whole new part to a song that I could not hear coming in through my right side. So whatever I'm trying to say, that's what I'm trying to say with that. But okay, so I'm just trying to show that like what I'm saying does have, and also with all of this, right? When we pull up Revelation, this is exactly why I believe when it talks about the one who has the name King of Kings and Lord of Lords written on him, that it explicitly says on the thigh. This is the only use of this word from it's meros, and its only use in the New Testament is right here. However, if you read the Greek Septuagint, this word is used in Genesis 32 to talk about the strike on the thigh. So it's the same concept in the meros. And we even, I'm going to suggest that's where the word marrow comes from, or it's like the idea of the bone marrow. Okay, we already read here, right? Or I guess here, bone, like, marrow probably, but substance, self same. So I think these are symbolic words. Like, it doesn't match exactly our science in the West here today, but it's not something that couldn't be like if you have to have a word that makes sense to people 2,000 years ago and that I can logically explain today in the same way that I'm doing here and it still makes sense, this is how you would do it. These Hebrew terms are perfect for doing what I just said, where it's not just in one, like if you had the exact scientific name that we use right now for all these terms, it would make no fucking sense to people, right? Because those terms change over time. But the general idea of bone or self same or substance, you get exactly what the fuck it says from that bone, self same, strength. So anyway, all right. That's why I think the name is written on the thigh of the one in Revelation. In Revelation 19. And like I've said, the one conquering at the seven churches of Asia, it looks to me has a lot of the qualities like gifts that only the person in Revelation 19 and the Christ could have, like the iron rod. And yet the person who's conquering at the fourth church, the one that deals with Jezebel, when I'm talking about Alessandro Ambrosio being Jezebel, yeah, that iron rod. You get that iron rod for dealing with some Jezebel woman and her children. Well, why would it explicitly say, like, Jesus literally says, I will kill her children with death? Why do you think it says that? Why would Jesus kill children? He also explicitly says, don't forgive her. And he rebukes the one conquering at the fourth church for forgiving her. She must have done something really fucked up and evil, according to Jesus and Yahweh, for Jesus to literally say, don't forgive her, I'm going to kill her children and throw her on her deathbed, where she's going to get some kind of sickness or pestilence. The idea of it says a couch, which is the idea of some kind of, probably not casting couch, though it could have something to do with it. I feel like she's a model. She's probably been casted in some kind of casting couch situation, but in fact, she's even suggested that visually in some of her pictures. But moreover, it seems to suggest a form of a sick bed. And being that the fourth seal, trumpet, and plague seemingly have to do with some kind of burning fever sickness, it says that the sun scorches people with its heat at the fourth plague. And I even heard Nelson Walters saying today, like, well, these couldn't match up. The fourth trumpet and the fourth plague couldn't match up because these reasons. And he basically said it said 2/3 of the sun were hit, but no, it says 1/3. And it says a third is dimmed, which means 2/3 of the sun could go like super bright. If there's like a coronal hole, and then at this like so it, you have like you can't almost see like a third of the sun, but then all of a sudden the rest of the sun gets super flared. You know what I mean, or something like that. That could be something. But I'm also going to suggest it's not directly talking about that. It's talking about some kind of, as what it says at the fourth seal. So I was just talking about the trumpet where the sun gets blasted, but at the seal it explicitly says that plague, pestilence. So plague, which is a form of pestilence, famine, war, and wild animals kill a fourth of the world's population. I'm going to suggest most of that happens probably through plague and famine, and I'm going to suggest, or through pestilence, so like a disease, a sickness, and famine. There not being enough food. And I'm going to even suggest, moreover, that probably the bulk of that is through some kind of, pestilence, right? And it says a fourth of the world's population. Currently, over 2 billion people. So later on, it explicitly says, they're burned by the heat of the sun, and that's at the plague, right? Okay, well, guess what about the plague? The plague explicitly seems to be connected to this concept of this word reshef, which is a burning fever. That's how Strong's describes what it's talking about with this kind of like fire and thunderbolt, is this concept of this deity reshef. But deities in the ancient world were just like words like, the the term in Hebrew Yerek, like Jericho, but Yerek is the word for moon. But Phoenicians, literally their word for the moon god was just their word for the moon. So like, the word for the sea, Yam, was also like they would just deify the words of the thing. So like the sky. Well, what is the sky? The sky is a deity even in itself. And Yahweh's like, no, 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 no. You are closer to the deity because you are in my image. That's just a created thing. You are made in the image of the creator. You have something, when you have my spirit in you, that is closer to me. You have part of me in you. You have my spirit in you. You are more majestic than the things that I've created. You are an image of me. Those are created concepts and things. Yahweh is not. So when he's saying that, like, I'm not, right? When Yahweh says these things, because he's not. Neither is Jesus. Jesus is that word Yod Hey Yod that I showed you. Yod Hey Yod, in order for all of this to be correct, has to have pre-existed everything coming into existence. So something, in other words, Elohim, God, pre-existed everything coming into being. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that's the idea of there being a big bang. Yahweh said be, bang, right? I'm going to suggest the big crunch, the contraction of everything. Well, it's not going to be like scientists say it. It's going to be like what happens in Revelation, where there's a new heaven and a new earth. But okay, let's see. Do I have any more things? I guess I could show one last thing. So this is what Emilio said when I'm like, well, what do these kids look like? Well, I don't even know if do they look like me. And he goes, who is the mama? Because I've already brought up like, hey, I think I have kids. Well, if I shared it and he knows what I'm getting from this, that should also hint a little bit that maybe they look like me. But he goes, I don't think it's a cut and dry case. A little similar to me, but not conclusive. Again, an independent person who's seemingly unbiased. I mean, that's the idea, that they would be unbiased, is suggesting that they look like me. And then, I'm going to just suggest the biggest thing here. I can point out the exact features which look like me that Alessandro doesn't have, that Jamie Mazur doesn't have. So, in the least, if he has similar features, they only look similar. These look like my features. But, again, it can be a combination of those two. I don't think it is. But, until there's a DNA test, I can't conclusively 100% say this, that, or the other. So, but I'm going to just suggest that I do. Now, we're at 2 hours almost exactly, and so I'm going to end this here because I don't want to talk anymore. I have dinner, This was not meant to be that long. I just wanted to point out that my cousin was acting like an asshole towards me. But hey, look, it says "Good American" down here. Oh, okay. Anyway, um, but yeah, that's it. So I just like I think what I'm saying here is valid, and I don't really give a fuck what other people say. And I think I have the right as an American to my free speech, and I'm not threatening to hurt people, and I'm not hurting myself. So, though I do think Yahweh is going to do a little bit of that part, not me, but other people, because that's what he says. Anyway, have a blessed one. I'll catch you next time. Later. Yeah.